How does the gender wage gap affect female engineers? In order to understand how the gender wage gap affects women in engineering, we must backtrack and start with a definition of the wage gap. The wage gap is a statistical indicator often used as an index of the status of women's earnings relative to men's. To many people, this is just a buzzword, a myth. The most quoted statistic is that women make about 77 cents of a dollar than a man makes. What this means is that in the United States, across all occupations, women working full-time all year round make 23% less earnings than men make. But what really makes up the statistic of the wage gap? There are 4 factors that are typically linked to the gender wage gap: family responsibilities, occupational differences, education, and years of experience. Typically, mythbusters of the wage gap will attribute these 4 factors to a woman's choice of occupation. One of the largest factors of the wage gap is that men and women hold different occupations and work in different industries. Nearly half of all working women are employed in only 20 occupations, some of which are secretaries, nurses, and school teachers. These jobs are often female-dominated, and factually, this leads to lower wages. The second factor is parental responsibilities. Women working full-time will typically work less hours than men because of home and childcare. Research says that employed mothers with a child under age 6 spend about 47 more minutes per day caring for and helping household members compared to employed fathers. Mothers on average have lower earnings than women without children. Ultimately, a significant factor in deepening the wage gap is the fact that mothers do not have the right to paid maternity leave after the birth of a new child. When women take unpaid time out, the gap becomes greater, and they are more likely to miss opportunities to grow and earn more money in their career. The third and fourth factor is education and experience. Statistics show that women who have higher education degrees and more years of experience will make typically higher earnings. However, this doesn't always hold true. About 40% of the wage gap comes from unexplainable factors, which appear like magic. Researchers understand that these may come from discrimination. Despite 60% of the factors being explained as occupational choices and experience, it is clear that all factors are highly influenced by the structure of a male-dominated society that leads women to make occupational decisions. But what about engineering? While the statistic of the 77 cent to a dollar is heard throughout, people rarely look at the wage gap when it comes down to the same occupation, experience, and education. Glassdoor, a recruiting company with a database of more than 8 million companies, conducted research on explaining the wage gap and observed specific factors that affect the difference in pays in several occupations, including engineering. When comparing 2 engineers, a female and a male, who are about the same age, have similar education, and have the same amount of years of experience, the wage gap decreases from 24% to 19%. Even more so, as you begin looking at the same industry, occupation, city, year, and firm size, the gap decreases even more. Ultimately, when looking at the exact same job titles, the gap is only 5%. Fantastic! But where did those 5 cents come from? Why is there even a gap? This is part of the unexplained factor of the wage gap, which Glassdoor chief economic Andrew Chamberlain attributes to gender bias. Another important factor that has been explored in engineering, specifically, is years of experience. Glassdoor also found that as years of experience increase with both male and female engineers, the female engineers will make 11% less than the male engineer. This means that even though women have the same amount of years of experience as men do, they are more likely to earn less than the male engineer. How come? This could be attributed to the fact that even though female engineers have the same amount of years of experience, they are less likely to hold leadership positions. They are less likely to be leaders in the industry because the structure of tech industries, such as engineering, are not in place to encourage women to take these positions. the stigma that women cannot hold leadership positions because they struggle to juggle with parental and household responsibilities still holds in 2016. In order to explore this even more, two junior civil engineering students working at the same company and under the same position were asked about their wages. They both answered that all interns make $14 per hour. And when asked if they had ever seen any discrimination in their company, they said no, but that because the field is so male dominated, it is not surprising that women are not encouraged to work there. So, how does this affect me? Female engineering students should not worry about being subject to the wage gap when interning as students or as recent graduates. However, it is seen in statistics that the more experience a female engineer gains, the more that they will see the gap widening. The average wage gap in engineering is only noticeable after 4 to 6 years of experience, and it's mostly due to parental responsibilities and the existence of the inexplicable factor that affects all female engineers. Despite the fact that the gender wage gap is much lower in other industries, the way that engineering is structured and has been structured for so many years, it is much harder for women to succeed in engineering than men. It is also not fair that women must make decisions between their family and work because they are more likely to experience harsher consequences than men. By understanding how our male-dominated culture works and our careers are deeply influenced by the society in which a woman is raised, we can define social norms and demand policies that favor the success of women in engineering and across all disciplines.